Hello, I'm Cindy Glovinsky, and I'm going to read you some poems from my new book, which is entitled Unclenching. It was just released from Finishing Line Press in September of 2023, and it's dedicated to all aging workers and retirees everywhere, and to my husband, Ira, forever young. The book can best be described as a journey from stressed out office worker in her last year of work to progressively more laid back retiree. So, um, I will start with a poem that was written when I was still working, and it's called Holy Week at Work. This is Holy Week, which I'm celebrating by listening with headphones to the Fauré Requiem while proofreading a paper on smoking rates in China. When my best friend, Bonnie, sends me an email fuming about having to move to a different cubicle, and I send her my poem about office bullies and suggest that she quit DTE and join the Peace Corps. And the choir is up to the Kyrie as I read that the smoking rates have gone down because people in China really are smoking less, and not just because of the changes in age structure. And Bonnie says she can't possibly join the Peace Corps because she can't leave her sister who has lung cancer. And I'm looking at the smoking paper references, which will take me at least an hour to redo. And now the baritone is bellowing Liberame, Liberame from the grave. And I remember that this week is also Passover and I want to listen. But just then, Rhonda comes fussing in about some account sheet or other, and I say some words to make her go away, and she does. And then for a moment, I sit breathing and listening. When I look back up at the screen, I see that the author has already fixed all the references herself, and there's another email from Bonnie about the swamp cabbage and butterflies she saw on her 7 mile hike, and all the soprano souls are floating up over the world along with the butterflies like cigarette smoke wafting all the way from China. Now, you may wonder what the poem about office bullies was that I read to Bonnie, and I'm going to read you that poem. This is called The Bully. My psychologist husband says Asperger's, but he never met you. So what does he know? Me, I'm more inclined to think obsessive compulsive personality disorder, which translates to nitpicky arse pain. I worked with you 9 years ago for only about a year, though to me it seemed longer. My predecessor told me she quit because of you. I heard that her predecessor was always in tears. It took me a whole year to talk our boss into hiring someone else to work for you, but he finally did. I'm sure you were as happy as I was, and after that, we rarely even said hello. Once at the Y, I glanced over at the body track, and there you were, stomping away, a skinny piece of gristle, though I suppose you had to be tough to make distinguished professor in a field ruled by men. I took care of myself all right. It's what you have to do with bullies. But even now, 9 years later, I keep thinking up things to say to you on my last day in this department. The distinguished professor thing might fool everyone else, I could say, but it doesn't fool me. Your accent gives you away. I can imagine you down in some holler battling brothers and a drunken daddy. Did he lock you in a shed when you were bad? Was that why you sent me all those emails with instructions in big block letters and went ballistic when I rented you a car from a place that didn't give frequent flyer points? I'd love to go ask you that on the day I retire, but what good would it do? I'm not faculty after all, as you so often reminded me. If I were appointed God, the first thing I'd do is give the world some magic formula to cure people like you, after which you and I might do lunch and share our stories. But since I'm not God, or even faculty, the best I could do is write this poem, which I know you'll never read. So, on a more positive note, I'm going to read you a poem called The Good Day. Yesterday morning in the shower, I felt the bar of soap in my hand and knew this was going to be a good day, and it was. Making breakfast, I broke an orange apart, slice by slice, and watched the egg's clear skirt turn to white in the pan. Walking, I cherished a dance studio's purple awning and a cardinal's whistle and the smell of mulch around baby trees. At my desk, I glided through the hours from 8 to 5 with world-class mindfulness and handled each surprise with finesse, even the darts. In bed that night, I promised myself I'd try for another good day today, but this morning the soap slid out of my hand. I picked it up and told myself today could still be good, and it was, but alas, not quite so good as yesterday's good day. So, those are all poems written when I was still working. Now, for something about things a bit later, this is a poem about a couple dealing with a challenge. It's a couple that is not necessarily my husband and me, because things tend to get more exaggerated as you work on a poem or a story. Um, we're dealing with a challenge that the couple are dealing with a challenge that is become all too familiar, I'm afraid, to those of us who live in Southeast Michigan. It's called powerless. Can't meet, can't print, can't cook, can't vacuum, can't watch, can't see, can't. Why did I marry him? A million reasons, actually. But his whining at times like this wasn't one of them. Give it a break, dear, I'll say, when he starts in again. Summer storms happen. This can't last forever. I think I saw a crew up the street fiddling with that box on the corner. That's a good sign, isn't it? We should have gotten the grill fixed. We should have bought more batteries. We should have bought a generator. Should. So what's the matter, I could say. Have you never been powerless before? Is that a new experience for you? Well, think of that. I've been powerless my whole life about all sorts of things, which is maybe why I'm so much better at this than you are. That's what I'd like to say, but I won't. But really, he doesn't know what it's like. That god awful thing every month from 14 to 50, then hot flashes and mood swings, not to mention the baby ordeal. And meanwhile, a lot of type A white humanoids with big shoulders and that silly dangling would be weapon between their legs, trashing our life decisions. Which all the power suits, power walking, power stances, empowerment, higher power in the world will never entirely prevent, I'm convinced. I have learned to do what I can, even if it's not much, which is why, when the lights went out, I called the electric company, unplugged the computers, lit the candles, found the flashlights, phoned the restaurants, turned on the radio, bought the batteries, and tossed the rotting meat while he sat in his chair and stewed about the work he couldn't do, and the mess in the house, and the aches in his joints, and the state of the world. But of course, since coping is what I do, I can cope with that too. Reframe his kvetching as static on some cheap transistor and tell myself it's the price I pay for the good times. Just one more thing over which, until death do us part, I remain eternally, resignedly powerless. Now, another challenge that is we often have to, many of us as we get up in years, start to deal with a lot is just our feelings about the whole issue of mortality. I think it's here somewhere, and I'm not seeing my poem. Oh, it's here. Shoot, I had them all marked. Here it is. This is called This Could Be It. Because after the blood work comes back, you just know this is it, even though you still feel fine and the doctor hasn't actually told you that. You begin making plans to buy a big screen TV for the bedroom and show your spouse how to access Fidelity and visit the Berkshires one last time. You rehearse telling your loved ones the bad news and start mentally drafting your obituary, knowing that if you leave it up to them, they'll leave out all the best stuff. You reread Donald Hall's poem about Jane Kenyon dying of leukemia and pull out that book on pain management you've been meaning to read. You think about how, notwithstanding prediabetes, when your doctor finally gives you the word, you'll go to Ben and Jerry's and get yourself the biggest hot fudge sundae on the menu. You go for a walk to look at the leaves and stand staring at one gorgeous red tree for a long time, just knowing that this may be the last gorgeous red tree you'll ever get to see. But then You Google and discover that the African lymphoma that killed your dad at age 70 isn't hereditary, and your doctor calls to tell you this isn't it, not yet anyhow, sending you back to plan A, back from funeral fantasies to decluttering and checkbooks and Thanksgiving dinner in less than a month. And meanwhile, it strikes you that the red leaves aren't quite so gorgeous now as they were when you just knew this was it. And you're forced to admit that although you're relieved, yes, you certainly are, no doubt about that, you can't help missing believing this was it, just a little. And I'm going to end with the last poem of the book. It's the title poem, Unclenching. Excuse me. The snow decides when it will snow, testing it first with a flake or three before making up its mind in a swirl. The snow decides, not some eighth grader fixed on school closings, willing white moths out of the blank air. The hand decides what bills to sign. The other mouth can choose to kiss or not to kiss. The dog controls his bark, the moon, the moon. Those boots that come marching over the ridge will march. The best we can do is oppose them. Dear one, open your hand, surrender boots to boots, kiss to kiss, snow to snow. Give back all things unto themselves and sleep. Thank you for listening to this. And if you like what you've heard, I hope you will ask your local bookstore to order Unclenching by Cindy Glovinsky. Thank you.